Hello everyone and welcome back. Today we are looking at Tanjiro from the Demon Slayer core. This is more focused around the fire aspect of him rather than the water aspect, as the water aspect was a little bit hard to portray with an Elden Ring. We are using the black katana known as the Nagakiba. Please excuse any pronunciations throughout this video as some of them could be a bit wonky. This is paired with the Flame Strike Ash of War, which essentially sets your blade ablaze. This is very similar to the build of the two previous videos that we have done where we took a deep dive into his teammates Zenitsu and Inosuke. We have tried to stick to the anime as much as we physically could, and to a point of where we do a lot of dodging just to look for that opening thread in order to slay our enemies, not that I'm getting my ass kicked. I have tried to pick as many demonic looking creatures as we could to fight in this video. This build is heavily focused around Dex and the Fire Ash of War. We will cover the stats and gear towards the end of this video. The blade is solely picked on the fact that it is black. Within the show he uses a colour changing blade that quickly shifts to black. I did thoroughly enjoy this build. I mean, it isn't as good as what the Inosuke one was, but it is still great to use and he has the ability to hit quite hard. You can easily change up your talismans to fit your playstyle, or if you're taking too much damage and you want more tanky ones, or if you're just not happy with the physical damage ones that I've put on, you can easily change them up to make any combination that's great for you. The incantations we use are Flame Grant Me Strength, which grants us an additional 20% damage or physical damage, and also increases our recovery speed for stamina by 11.1%. This is important if we're sticking towards the anime and the particular playstyles of these three, solely based on the fact is they do run out of stamina and they have the recovery breathing, and I find that this just has the edge. Now we also use the Golden Vow incantation, which buffs our damage by 15% and all our damage negation by 10%, which also helps out on making this build a little bit more tanky with the ability to hit a bit harder. If you're not a fan of Flame Grant Me Strength, you can go ahead and change it to the Howler Shibari, which kind of depends on whatever you prefer. Both have pros and both have cons. I've gone ahead and added this fight because one, it's actually one of my favourite ones to do, and two, this is probably the creepiest area I've ever been in terms of the game. And this boss himself, I prefer the skinny one over the larger one, just as he is a lot easier to get rid of. But what I liked about this fight is I was getting behind him a lot, which actually, when you watch the show, is we're essentially, we're wielding a katana and we have incredible speed. So we really need to utilise that a bit more. I can be quite bad at not utilising it and still thinking I'm using a colossal weapon and heavy tank gear to try and attempt the tank and spank. But with these type of builds, it's more about getting in and out. And especially when you're using this blade itself, I mean, you can interchange this if you don't want to use this black blade really and you want something a bit smaller, you can go ahead and shift it out, but solely based on the purpose of the show, we're using it because it is black and that's the whole big selling point of him. The next boss coming up is actually the first time I've ever physically found it and fought it, because I could never find this secret area within Radahn's area. Once you go ahead and defeat Radahn, if you don't know, if you continue running straight in front of you really and head towards the sea, straight in front of you is a cave. You can open the doors and then there's a mini dungeon with a door you need to open, and then you find this tree spirit. Now I thought, we can kind of wing this and say it's one of the lower six, I would say. It wasn't a particularly difficult fight, but it definitely wasn't a super easy fight because it has the ability to apply Scarlet Rot, which means that you need to get out of the way, because if you're getting Scarlet Rot on you, you're basically screwed if you have no way to remove it. And if we're going down the line of the Demon Slayers, they don't really have a way to remove it during the fight. Yes, they can slow their breathing down, but doing that within the game is really difficult to show. So yes, technically we could slow the poison down, which is what we do by getting out of the way. We could wing it like that, I would say. You could turn around and say, well, if I get out of the way, we would essentially reduce our Scarlet Rot and the bar would start to shrink. But I did enjoy this boss, which is why I've put it in here. I'm kind of a bit annoyed that it's taken me 3 or 4 playthroughs to finally get around to killing it. But hey, we found it eventually and it works really well within this build as well. We'll go ahead and pick up some nice little drops from that as well. Now we're going on to a boss that we skip quite a lot, and playing as Tanjiro, I wanted to go ahead and kill some ghosts. And this one is, if you've never seen it before, it's essentially a ghost on a horse. Now we go ahead and put up, we use our buffs, and we'll go through what's in our flask, but essentially it increases our faith and increases our fire damage, which stacks really well with one of our talismans, which is the Fire Scorpion Charm, so we get a nice additional damage boost for that. This boss is great, but the one thing I don't really like about it is, yes, it has a sound when you hit it, but it's not very loud. So I did find I wasn't 100% sure if I was hitting it because I wasn't always looking at the damage. But this weapon has incredible range. Now, I know his sword in the show isn't this big, but I couldn't find a small blade that was black. Now we are shifting on to the NPC side, and I've gone ahead and picked these scary women because they are very demonic, and to be honest it's something I should have picked for the other two videos, but these also just creep me out and I wanted to go ahead and massacre them because they are the creepiest thing in the game in my opinion. Change my mind if I'm wrong, but if you have anything else in the game that you think is creepier, comment it below. But these things, they just chant. They're alright with you for a while until you get too close to their main man. So we go ahead and pick up the stragglers, but you will see here that it does have really good AoE ability, especially with the Ash of War, and we go ahead and get a block in there. So, but blocking is more of a utilisation that I should have been physically doing with this build. In short, this build absolutely destroys NPCs. For the build, we have the Nagakiba plus 25 with the flame strike on it. We have the Prospector's long gown altered and the Prospector's trousers, the Shield of Alexander, the Rotten Wind Insignia, Millicent's Prosthesis, and the Fire Scorpion Charm. We pair that with the Flame-Shrouding cracked tier, which stacks nicely with the Fire Talisman that we use for the Scorpion, and the Faith Not Crystal tier. Our stats are essentially the same as the previous two Demon Slayers, which is level 150, Vigour of 60, Mind of 15, Endurance of 20, Strength of 19, Dex is 85, you should drop this to 80, your Intel as 10, the Faith as 15, and Arcane as 10. You can go ahead and shift those 5 points of Dex, you can easily drop them into Faith if you wanted to use the Halashibari, because you would have to stack it slightly more. Even though you are using the Flamed Cracked tier, you would need to hit the 33 mark to use the Hal. Now, with the other points, you could go ahead and drop it into Mind if you're struggling with your FP, or if you're struggling with Endurance and you need a bit more of a stamina pool, you can easily throw more into Endurance. Now, this build is heavily focused around Dex, and I would say 80 is kind of a good point to be at, because it gives you the ability to hit pretty hard and you're still using what I would class as a Demon Slayer build. One thing to mention, you can use any seal in the game that you fancy. That doesn't really affect you. Whatever you've got, just throw it on, whatever works with your build. We are using a medium load as well. I don't think you should really drop this to a light load, but you could if you wanted. I hope you've all enjoyed that. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye!